The darkness of space stretched endlessly, broken only by the distant pinpricks of stars and the smooth silver hull of the patrol vessel Vigilant. Inside the ship's bridge, Commander Reed stared at the main view screen, his face bathed in the soft blue glow of the control panels. "Status report, Officer Teller," he said, his voice cutting through the quiet hum of the ship's systems. Teller, a tall figure with four-fingered hands and skin the color of pale granite, looked up from her station. "All systems normal, Commander. We're approaching the outer boundary of Prohibited Zone X7. Reed nodded. This was his 5th patrol of the abandoned human territories this year, a duty most Union officers tried to avoid. The empty planets and drifting ruins made for a boring assignment, but Reed found comfort in the predictability. 20,000. Years had passed since any human voice had been heard in these systems. There was something peaceful about that silence. "Prepare the standard sensor sweep," Reed ordered. "Union Science Division wants updated readings on radiation levels near the old terraform stations." The Vigilant was small as patrol ships went, just 40 crew members and barely 100 meters long. But it was perfect for these monitoring missions, able to slip between the debris fields that marked the edges of what had once been humanity's empire. "Commander, I'm picking up an unusual energy reading," Teller said suddenly, her fingers moving rapidly across her console. "It's coming from the relay station at the edge of this system." Reed frowned. The ancient human relay stations had been dead for thousands of years, studied and cataloged by generations of Union scientists. "Could be a sensor glitch. Run a diagnostic." "Already did, sir. The reading is real." Teller looked up, her large eyes showing concern. "And it's growing stronger." Reed moved to her station, looking at the readings himself. The energy signature was unlike anything in the Union database, a pulsing pattern that seemed to shift. Every few seconds. "Change course," Reed decided. "Let's take a closer look." The Vigilant altered its path, engines humming as it turned toward the distant relay station, a massive ring-shaped structure that had once been part of humanity's faster-than-light communication network. As they approached, the energy readings grew stronger. "Maintain distance," Reed cautioned. "Send a probe first." The small probe launched from the Vigilance bay, streaking toward the relay station. On the view screen, they watched as it approached the ancient structure. "Getting visual feed now," Teller announced. The image that appeared on the screen made Reed's breath catch. The relay station, dead and dark for 20 millennia, was lighting up. Section by section, like a massive machine waking from sleep, blue-white energy coursed through its circular frame. "That's impossible," whispered Officer Kai from the science station. "The power sources should have degraded thousands of years ago." Before Reed could respond, the relay station pulsed with blinding light. The probe's transmission cut out instantly. "Probe lost," Teller reported, alarm evident in her voice. "Back us off," Reed ordered. "Send an emergency message to Union Command. Tell them." A deep vibration cut through the ship, so powerful that Reed felt it in his bones. The view screen flickered, then stabilized to show the relay station now fully activated, its center filled with swirling energy. "Some kind of slipspace portal is forming," Kai said, voice shaking. "The readings match old records of human jump technology, but 100 times more powerful." Reed had never seen a human slipspace portal. No living being had. The technology had been banned throughout the Union for 15,000 years, deemed too dangerous and unstable. "Send that message now," Reed ordered Teller. "Priority Alpha." "Communications are being jammed," Teller replied, panic edging into her voice. "Something's interfering with—" She stopped mid-sentence, staring at the view screen. Reed turned to look and felt his heart skip a beat. Something was emerging from the portal. First came the nose, sharp and angular, made of some dark material that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Then came the main body of the vessel, stretching on and on until it dwarfed the relay station itself. The ship was massive, easily 10 times the size of the Vigilant, with strange markings along its hull. "Those are human script symbols," Kai whispered, checking the database. "That's a human warship." Reed had studied the old records. He knew the stories of human warships that could destroy entire fleets, of weapons that could crack planets. But those were just stories. Legends from 20,000 years ago. Scan it, he ordered, fighting to keep his voice steady. The scans can't penetrate the hull, Kai reported. But I'm detecting life signs inside, thousands of them. The implications hit Reed like a physical blow. Humans, alive, after 20,000 years of silence. Send a hail on all frequencies, Reed said. Include the first contact protocols. Teller worked her console. Message sent, no response. The human vessel hung in space, motionless except for faint lights flickering across its surface. Then, without warning, every communication channel on the Vigilant activated at once. A voice filled the bridge, deep, resonant, and speaking in a language none of them recognized. Computer, translate, Reed commanded. After a moment, the computer responded. Translation approximately 76% accurate. Language identified as Ancient Human Standard. The message repeated, this time with the computer translating. The Nomad returns. Humanity awakens. A chill ran down Reed's spine. In all the Union's history and all the scenarios they had prepared for, no one had ever truly believed that humanity would return. Commander? Kai called out, voice trembling. I'm detecting energy buildup in the human vessel. They're powering weapons systems. Reed stared at the massive ship. The Vigilant was a patrol vessel, lightly armed and never meant for combat against anything larger than smuggler ships. Against this human warship, they stood no chance. Evasive maneuvers, Reed ordered. Get us out of here, maximum speed. The Vigilant turned, engines straining as it accelerated away from the human vessel. On the rear view screen, Reed watched as the massive ship moved with surprising grace, adjusting its position. They're not pursuing, Teller reported, sounding surprised. They don't need to, Kai said quietly. Look. Reed looked at the sensor, displays, and felt his blood run cold. All across the system, ancient human facilities were powering up. Defense platforms, relay stations, orbital structures that had been studied and cataloged as harmless ruins for thousands of years. It's like they're waking up, Teller whispered. As they watched, the massive human ship, the Nomad, seemed to shudder before suddenly elongating and vanishing into another slipspace portal, leaving only the activated human structures behind. Where did they go? Reed demanded. Kai worked frantically at her station. Based on the portal trajectory, they're headed toward the Arcturus system. Reed felt a weight settle in his stomach. Arcturus had once been a major human colony world, now home to one of the Union's largest research stations dedicated to studying human artifacts. As soon as we're clear of the jamming field, send word to Union Command, Reed said. Tell them humanity has returned. As the Vigilant raced away from the scene, Reed couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. For 20,000 years, the galaxy had developed in the absence of humanity. Species had evolved, civilizations had risen, and the Union had formed, all while humans had become nothing more than a historical footnote. Now that footnote had returned, bringing with it all the dangerous power that had made humans the most feared species in the galaxy's history, and they had only just announced their arrival. Panic swept through the halls of the Galactic Union Council chamber. Representatives from over 30 species gathered in the massive circular room, their voices rising in alarm as the reports from the Vigilant were displayed on the main screen. Order. I will have order. The council leader, a tall being named Voss with skin like polished bronze, pounded his ceremonial staff against the floor. Gradually, the noise died down. We must approach this situation with calm and reason. The images from the Vigilant's encounter with the human ship Nomad played on a loop behind him. Many representatives watched with undisguised fear. What do we know so far? Voss asked, turning to the military liaison. Admiral Kane stepped forward. The human vessel appeared 3 days ago at the edge of prohibited zone X7. Since then, it has made brief appearances at 7 different locations, all former human colony worlds. Kane touched a control, and a star map appeared, showing the Nomad's path. It seems to be activating dormant human technology across these systems. Long-range scans show structures that have been silent for 20 millennia, suddenly powering up. A representative from the forest world of Turles stood. We should mobilize the fleet immediately. If humans have truly returned, we must show strength. Murmurs of agreement filled the chamber, but Voss raised his hand. Before we commit to any military action, we need to understand what we're facing. I've summoned our leading expert on human history. The doors at the far end of the chamber opened and a small, hunched figure entered. Dr. Morgan walked slowly, leaning on a cane, his age evident in every careful step. Despite being well over 100 years old, his eyes were sharp and clear. Dr. Morgan, Voss said with a respectful nod. Please share your insights on this situation. Morgan approached the central platform, looking up at the images of the nomad. What you're seeing, he said, his voice surprisingly strong, is something many of us believed would never happen. The return of humanity. He tapped his cane against the floor. For those unfamiliar with ancient history, humans dominated this sector of the galaxy 20,000 years ago. They were not the most numerous species, but they were undoubtedly the most aggressive in their expansion and technological development. Morgan gestured toward the image of the nomad. This vessel appears to match descriptions in our oldest archives of what humans called generation ships, vessels designed to travel vast distances over thousands of years. Are you suggesting, Kane interrupted, that this ship has been traveling for 20 millennia? It's possible, Morgan nodded. Historical records indicate that before humanity's disappearance, they were working on technology for intergalactic travel. If this is truly a returning generation ship, then these humans have been isolated from our galaxy's history. They don't know about the peace accords, the Union's formation, or that their home worlds have been quarantined. Silence fell over the chamber as the implications sank in. What do they want? Voss finally asked. Morgan shook his head. That, council leader, is the question that should worry us all. On the remote mining colony of Helios 9, Administrator Wilson sat at his desk, reviewing production reports. The small colony, with just under 5,000 inhabitants, supplied rare minerals to 3 different Union worlds. A soft chime announced a visitor. Enter, Wilson called, not looking up from his reports. The door slid open, and footsteps approached his desk. You have very lax security for a Union outpost, said an unfamiliar voice. Wilson looked up sharply. Standing before him was a figure unlike any he had seen before, bipedal, with skin a shade of pink-brown, 2 arms, and a head covered with short, dark hair. The stranger wore a dark uniform with unfamiliar insignia on the shoulders. Wilson's hand moved slowly toward the alarm button under his desk. I wouldn't do that, the stranger said calmly. Your security forces couldn't reach us in time, and it would only complicate our conversation. Wilson froze. Who are you? Captain Thomas, the stranger replied, of the starship Nomad. He smiled, showing flat white teeth. I'm human. Wilson felt his heart skip a beat. He had seen the emergency broadcasts, the warnings about the possible return of humanity. But to have one standing in his office. How did you get past our orbital defenses? Wilson managed to ask. Thomas laughed. Your defenses are based on simplified versions of our technology. It's like trying to keep the inventor out with his own lock. He sat down uninvited across from Wilson. We've been watching your Union for months. Your species have built civilizations from the ashes of our empire, using technologies you barely understand. Wilson swallowed hard. What do you want? Right now? Just a conversation? Thomas leaned back in the chair. My ancestors left this galaxy 20,000 years ago to escape a catastrophic war. Now their descendants have returned to reclaim their heritage. Your people disappeared, Wilson said carefully. The records say, Your records are incomplete, Thomas interrupted. We didn't disappear. We retreated. What remained of humanity entered suspended animation, hidden in bunkers beneath our worlds, waiting for the Nomad to return with the cure. Wilson's eyes widened. Cure? For what? Thomas's expression darkened. A neurological plague engineered during the last war. It targeted human brain patterns specifically, a weapon designed to wipe us out completely. He leaned forward. The Nomad was our last hope, a ship sent beyond the reach of our enemies to find a solution while the rest of our people slept, hidden from those who sought our extinction. But that was 20,000 years ago, Wilson said. Whatever species created this weapon must be long gone. Perhaps, Thomas agreed, but their legacy remains. Your Union quarantined our worlds, declared our technology dangerous, and built your civilization on the ruins of ours. He stood up. We've come to wake our people and reclaim what's ours. The Union won't allow that, Wilson warned. They'll see it as an invasion. Thomas smiled again, but there was no warmth in it. The Union exists because we weren't here. That's about to change. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. A courtesy administrator, in 3 days the Nomad will retrieve something from the 4th planet in the system. A hidden facility. I suggest you evacuate any mining operations there. Why tell me this? Wilson asked. Because not all humans want war, Thomas replied. But make no mistake, we will protect our own. He touched a device on his wrist, and his body seemed to shimmer. Consider this your only warning. Thomas vanished, leaving Wilson alone in the office. With shaking hands, he activated the emergency communication channel to Union Command. Admiral Kane stood in the observation room, watching as Union scientists examined the strange device found in Administrator Wilson's office. The human, Thomas, had left it behind apparently by accident. Anything? Kane asked the lead scientist. It's unlike anything we've seen, she replied. The technology is clearly human in origin, but far more advanced than any artifacts we've studied. Kane turned as Dr. Morgan entered the room. Doctor, what do you make of this report from Helios 9? Morgan read through the transcript of Wilson's encounter with the human captain. If what this Thomas says is true, then we have a far greater problem than one human ship. Explain, Kane demanded. He claims there are humans in suspended animation, hidden beneath the surface of their former worlds, Morgan said. Worlds that have been inhabited, studied, and developed by Union species for thousands of years. Kane's expression grew grim. How many? Based on historical population estimates before their disappearance? Morgan looked up, his eyes troubled. Potentially billions. The room fell silent. And now they believe they've found a cure for whatever drove them into hiding, Kane said softly. They're coming back to wake their people. Morgan nodded. The galaxy as we know it is about to change, Admiral. The question is, are we ready? Outside the window, Union warships gathered in formation, preparing for a conflict with an enemy that had been sleeping for 20,000 years. An enemy that had once ruled the stars and now had returned, bringing with them technologies and weapons that existed only as warnings in the oldest Union records. Humanity had awakened. And the galaxy would never be the same. The observation deck of the Nomad offered a spectacular view of the stars. Captain Thomas stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching as the massive ship approached the red planet that his ancestors had once called Mars. After 20,000 years, the 4th planet of humanity's home system looked different. Strange structures dotted its surface, evidence of the alien civilizations that had studied and built upon the ruins of human settlements. Captain? A voice called from behind him. Thomas turned to see Science Director Allen entering the observation deck. Allen was older than Thomas by nearly 20 years, his hair gray at the temples, his face lined with the wisdom that came from decades of leading the Nomad's scientific mission. The scans are complete, Allen said, joining Thomas at the viewport. Our instruments detect active cryogenic signatures beneath the surface, just as our records indicated. Thomas nodded. How many? At least 10,000 functioning pods in this facility alone. Allen's voice held a note of wonder. After all this time, they're still alive, Thomas. Still waiting for us. Thomas felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. The Nomad carried 50,000 humans, the descendants of the 5,000 who had left on the original mission. For generations, they had been raised with a single purpose: find a cure for the plague and return to awaken their sleeping kin. Now they had returned, but to a galaxy utterly transformed. The Union vessels are maintaining their distance, reported Military Commander Pierce as he strode onto the deck. Unlike the thoughtful Alan, Pierce was all sharp edges and hard angles, his body built for combat, his mind focused on threats. But they've established a blockade around the planet, 17 warships in total. Can we break through? Thomas asked. Pierce smiled thinly. Easily. Their weapons are primitive compared to ours, but he hesitated. It would mean casualties. On their side, Thomas turned back to the viewport. That's not how I want to announce our return. With respect, Captain, Pierce said, his voice hardening. These aliens have taken our worlds, stripped our resources, and treat our history like a cautionary tale. The bunker on Mars contains 10,000 of our people. We should reclaim what's ours by any means necessary. Alan shook his head. We were sent to find a cure, not start a new war. These species haven't harmed our sleeping kin. By all evidence, they didn't even know they existed. Not until now, Pierce countered. And their first response was to surround Mars with warships. What does that tell you about their intentions? Thomas remained silent, weighing his options. The Nomad possessed technology 20,000 years more advanced than anything they had encountered since their return. They could easily force their way through the Union blockade. But at what cost? We came back to save humanity, Thomas said finally, not to make the same mistakes that nearly destroyed us before. He turned to Alan. Prepare a communication to the Union fleet. I want to talk. Dr. Morgan stood on the bridge of the Union flagship Concord, feeling very small next to Admiral Walker. The Admiral was a giant of a being, nearly 3 meters tall, with 4 arms and skin like polished obsidian. Despite his fearsome appearance, Walker was known throughout the Union as a thoughtful and measured commander. The human vessel is hailing us, reported the communications officer. Walker looked at Morgan. You're our expert on humanity, Doctor. Any advice before I speak with them? Morgan considered carefully. Humans respond to strength, but also to respect. Show neither fear nor aggression. Treat them as equals, regardless of how you actually feel. Walker nodded and straightened to his full height. Open the channel. The view screen flickered, and the image of Captain Thomas appeared. The human looked calm, his eyes moving between Walker and Morgan. This is Admiral Walker of the Galactic Union, Walker began. You have entered a restricted system without authorization. Thomas smiled slightly. Restricted by whom, Admiral? This system was the heart of human space 20,000 years before your Union existed. The galaxy has changed, Walker replied. The Union now maintains peace across 200 worlds. Peace built on the graves of my species, Thomas said, his smile fading. We've detected a human cryogenic facility beneath the surface of Mars. 10,000 of our people sleep there, Admiral. We've come to wake them. Walker's expression didn't change. Your ship represents an unknown threat to the Union. Your technology is beyond anything our scientists have encountered. Until we can be certain of your intentions, we cannot allow you access to Mars. Thomas leaned forward. You mistake my communication for a request, Admiral. It was merely a courtesy. We will retrieve our people, with or without your permission. Morgan stepped forward. Captain Thomas, I am Dr. Morgan, a historian specializing in human studies. Perhaps we could meet face to face. There is much we could learn from each other. Thomas studied Morgan with interest. A historian? Then you know what happened to my species? We know that humanity seemed to vanish approximately 20,000 years ago, Morgan replied. The records are fragmentary at best. Thomas exchanged glances with someone off-screen, then nodded. Very well, a meeting, but not on your ship or mine, the surface of Mars, neutral ground. After the communication ended, Walker turned to Morgan. Is this wise, Doctor? Morgan sighed heavily. No, Admiral, but neither is starting a war with an enemy we don't understand. The Martian landscape stretched out in all directions, red dust, swirling in the thin atmosphere. Despite 20 millennia of minimal terraforming, humans still required breathing apparatus on the surface. Thomas stood with Alan and Pierce, watching as the Union shuttle landed 100 meters away. "This is a mistake," Pierce muttered, his hand resting on the weapon at his hip. "We should be breaking through their blockade, not talking." "We've spent 20,000 years seeking a cure," Alan reminded him. "We can spare a few hours for diplomacy." Thomas said nothing, watching as three figures descended from the shuttle. He recognized Admiral Walker and Dr. Morgan from the communication. The third was unknown to him, a being with translucent skin through which complex organs could be seen pulsing gently. As the Union representatives approached, Thomas stepped forward to meet them halfway. For the first time in 20 millennia, humans and the species that had replaced them stood face to face on the red soil of Mars. "Captain Thomas," Walker said with a formal nod. "Admiral," Thomas replied. "Thank you for agreeing to this meeting." Dr. Morgan stepped forward eagerly. "Captain, the opportunity to speak with a human after all these years is remarkable. There is so much we could learn from each other." Thomas smiled faintly. "Knowledge is why we left, Doctor. Knowledge and survival." He gestured toward a nearby ridge. "Beneath that ridge lies one of humanity's last refuges. 10,000 of my people frozen in time, waiting for the cure we traveled beyond the galaxy to find." The transparent being spoke, its voice musical and strange. "You claim a plague forced humanity into hiding. Our records suggest otherwise. We believe humans destroyed themselves in a final war, the culmination of their aggressive nature." "And you are?" Thomas asked. "Chief Archivist Lumi," the being replied. "I oversee the Union's historical records." Thomas exchanged glances with Alan. "Your records are incomplete, Archivist. The final war was caused by the plague, or rather by the fear it created. As nations watched their populations succumb, they blamed each other. What began as a medical crisis ended in conflict." Morgan looked fascinated. "And the Nomad was sent to find a cure beyond our galaxy?" "Yes," Alan answered. "Our ancestors believed the plague might have been engineered to target specific neural patterns unique to humans. They theorized that studying life forms from beyond our galaxy might lead to a solution." "And did it?" Walker asked. Thomas nodded. "After 15,000 years of travel and research, yes. The cure was developed 3 generations ago. We've spent the time since then returning home." Walker's expression remained unreadable. "And now you wish to awaken your people and what? Reclaim your former empire? The worlds that once belonged to humanity are now home to billions of Union citizens." "We don't seek conflict," Thomas insisted. "But we will protect our people, those still sleeping and those aboard the Nomad. We've come too far to be denied now." As they spoke, none of them noticed the small probe that detached from the Nomad, burrowing into the Martian soil and disappearing beneath the surface. Deep below, it made its way through ancient tunnels until it reached the hidden bunker where 10,000 humans slept in cryogenic suspension. Inside the control room of the bunker, systems that had maintained minimal function for 20 millennia suddenly came fully online as the probe connected to the main computer. Data streamed back and forth, the cure formula transmitted from the Nomad, status reports from the sleeping humans, and something else. Something that neither the humans nor the Union representatives talking on the surface could have anticipated. A message left 20,000 years ago waiting to be found. To those who return, what we fled was not what we believed. The plague was not a weapon of war. It was them. They are still here. They are waiting. Do not wake us until you understand. The automated systems began implementing revival protocols for the first 100 sleepers, even as the warning flashed unnoticed on a screen deep below the Martian surface. Red alert sirens wailed throughout the Union flagship Concord. Admiral Walker strode onto the bridge, his face grim as officers rushed to their stations. "Report," he demanded. "Massive energy spike from beneath the Martian surface. The sensor," officer replied. "Something's happening at the human cryogenic facility." Walker turned to the communications officer. "Get me Captain Thomas immediately." Unable to establish contact, Admiral, the officer responded. All channels to the Nomad are being blocked. Dr. Morgan hurried onto the bridge, out of breath. Admiral, I've been analyzing the data from our meeting with the humans. There's something you need to see. Walker barely glanced at him. Not now, Doctor, we have a situation. That's just it, Morgan insisted, holding up a data pad. I believe the situations are connected. Look at these energy readings from the Nomad during our meeting. Walker reluctantly took the pad. His eyes widened as he studied the information. They deployed something while we were talking. A distraction. Precisely, Morgan nodded. And based on these readings, whatever they sent to the facility has activated systems that have been dormant for 20 millennia. Walker's expression hardened. Prepare all weapons. Target the human vessel. Admiral, Morgan protested. We don't know their intentions. Their intentions are clear, Doctor. Walker cut him off. They deceived us while taking action behind our backs. He turned to his tactical officer. Status of Union forces. 17 vessels in formation, Admiral. All reporting ready. Walker took his command position. On my mark, Admiral. The sensor officer called out. The Nomad is moving. On the main view screen, the massive human ship shifted position, placing itself directly between the Union fleet and Mars. Its dark hull seemed to absorb the light of the distant sun, making it appear like a hole in space. They're protecting the facility, Morgan said quietly. Or challenging us, Walker replied. Open fire. Deep beneath the Martian surface, in the control center of the human cryogenic facility, the automated systems continued their work. Status. Lights changed from red to yellow to green as the revival process for the first 100 sleepers proceeded. In one of the revival chambers, the transparent cover of a cryogenic pod slowly lifted. Cold mist spilled out as warming systems brought the occupant's body temperature back to normal. Inside, a woman with pale skin and dark hair took her first breath in 20,000 years. Her eyes opened, unfocused at first, then gradually sharpening. The overhead lights seemed painfully bright after millennia of darkness. Medical systems monitored her vital signs as she struggled to sit up. A robotic assistant helped her into a sitting position. Revival process complete, it announced in an ancient human language. Welcome back, Dr. West. West's throat was dry, her voice a rasp when she finally spoke. How long? Time elapsed since suspension. 2097 standard years, 3 months, 17 days, the robot replied. West closed her eyes briefly, absorbing the shock. When the decision had been made to enter cryogenic suspension, no one had expected it would last so long. The Nomad, she asked, has it returned? Affirmative. Connection with the Nomad was established 47 minutes ago. Revival protocols initiated. West swung her legs over the side of the pod, wincing at muscles stiff from their long sleep. Show me the status of the facility. A holographic display appeared before her, showing the vast underground complex. Thousands of pods containing sleeping humans stretched out in all directions. But something was wrong. One section of the display pulsed with red warning lights. What's happening in Section 7? West demanded. The robot paused as if processing conflicting instructions. Section 7 contains the Specialist Division. Their revival was prioritized by the incoming signal from the Nomad. West's eyes widened, in alarm. No, override that command. Section 7 remains in suspension. Authorization West Alpha 9-3. Unable to comply, the robot responded. Command authorization from Nomad supersedes facility protocols. West pushed herself to her feet, ignoring the pain of her stiff body. I need to get to the communication center now. Aboard the Nomad, chaos erupted as the Union fleet opened fire. Energy beams lanced through space, impacting against the ship's advanced shields. Shields holding at 97%, reported the tactical officer. Minimal damage. Captain Thomas gripped the arms of his command chair. Return fire? Commander Pierce nodded eagerly. Their weapons are nothing compared to ours. One volley could disable half their fleet. And kill how many? Thomas demanded. They fired first, Pierce insisted. We have the right to defend ourselves. Before Thomas could respond, Science Director Allen burst onto the bridge. Captain, the facility probe is sending unexpected data. The revival process has started, but... He paused, staring at the view screen showing the Union attack. What's happening? The Union apparently didn't appreciate our little distraction, Thomas said grimly. What about the facility? Allen handed him a datapad. The probe initiated revival protocols as planned, but it selected subjects from Section 7 for priority awakening. Thomas's face paled. Section 7, that wasn't the plan. What's in Section 7? Pierce asked, momentarily distracted from the battle. According to the facility records, Section 7 housed individuals with specialized neural patterns, Allen explained. Subjects who showed resistance to the plague. Thomas stood up. We need to abort, now. Captain, we're under attack. Pierce protested. This is more important, Thomas insisted. Send the abort code to the facility probe. Allen worked frantically at a console. No response. The probe isn't acknowledging the command. Thomas exchanged a worried glance with Allen. Could the Union be jamming us? Unlikely, Allen replied. This is a direct quantum link. It can't be blocked by conventional means. Then why? Thomas's question was cut short as a violent explosion rocked the ship. On the view screen, one of the Union vessels erupted in flames breaking apart. Who fired? Thomas demanded, turning to Pierce. The military commander looked equally surprised. Not us, Captain. Our weapons are still offline. Then who? Another Union ship exploded, then a third. The remaining vessels broke formation, retreating from an enemy they couldn't see. Sensor sweep, Thomas ordered. Find the source of those attacks. The tactical officer worked frantically at her station. Captain, the attacks. They're coming from Mars, from the surface installations we activated when we arrived in the system. Thomas stared at the view screen in disbelief. Ancient human defense systems dormant for 20 millennia had suddenly come online and were targeting the Union fleet. Shut them down, he ordered. Override code Thomas 1 Alpha 6. No response, Captain, the officer replied. The defense systems aren't acknowledging our commands. On the view screen, they watched as the Union fleet regrouped at a safer distance. Several ships showed damage from the unexpected attack, with one completely destroyed. Allen approached Thomas, speaking quietly. Captain, I think we need to consider the possibility that something else is controlling both the facility and the defense systems. Something else? Thomas repeated. What do you mean? Before Allen could respond, the communication officer called out, Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the facility. The main view screen changed to show the face of a woman. Her dark hair was tangled, her skin unnaturally pale, but her eyes burned with urgent intensity. This is Dr. Emma West, lead researcher of the Mars Cryogenic Facility, she said, her voice hoarse. To the crew of the Nomad, you must leave this system immediately. The plague wasn't what we thought. They're waking up in Section 7. The transmission cut off abruptly, replaced by static. Thomas turned to Pierce. Prepare a landing party. We need to get down there. Pierce nodded, all earlier arguments forgotten in the face of this new threat. Captain, the tactical officer called. The Union fleet is hailing us. Thomas took a deep breath. On screen, Admiral Walker appeared, his face etched with anger. Captain Thomas, explain yourself. Your defense systems just destroyed one of my ships. Admiral, we didn't activate those weapons, Thomas replied. Something else has taken control of the human systems. On Mars, something we don't understand yet. I suggest a temporary alliance until we determine what we're facing. Walker's expression showed his disbelief. An alliance? After your deception? Admiral, Thomas said urgently, I believe we've both been manipulated. Whatever is happening, on Mars threatens all of us. Dr. West's warning was clear. The plague that drove humanity into hiding wasn't what we thought it was. On the view screen, Walker conferred with someone off-screen. Finally, he turned back to Thomas. We will cease fire and maintain distance, but at the first sign of treachery, Understood. Thomas nodded. Thank you, Admiral. As the communication ended, Alan approached Thomas. Captain, if the plague wasn't what our ancestors believed, what was it? Thomas stared at the red planet visible through the viewport. I don't know. But after 20,000 years, I think we're about to find out. The Martian dust swirled around the landing party as they approached the hidden entrance to the cryogenic facility. Captain Thomas led the way, followed by Commander Pierce and 2 security officers from the Nomad. Behind them came Admiral Walker, Dr. Morgan, and 3 Union soldiers. Strange allies, Pierce muttered, glancing at the Union representatives. Necessary ones, Thomas replied quietly. Whatever's happening here is beyond our old conflicts. The entrance, a massive door built into the side of a cliff, stood partially open. Emergency lights flickered from within, casting long shadows across the red landscape. Our scans detect multiple life signs inside, Walker said, checking a device on his wrist. Most are clustered in the lower levels. Thomas nodded. The revival chambers would be at the bottom of the facility. If Dr. West is trying to stop the process in Section 7, that's where she'll be. Dr. Morgan stepped forward, his eyes wide with academic excitement despite the danger. Captain, this facility has been operating for 20,000 years. The technological achievement alone is remarkable. Save your admiration, Doctor, Pierce said sharply. We don't know what we're walking into. The group entered the facility, weapons ready. The corridors were dimly lit by emergency lighting. The air stale but breathable. Their footsteps echoed on metal floors that had not felt human weight for millennia. According to the facility schematics, the main control center should be 3 levels down, Thomas said, leading them toward a transport tube. The tube, a vertical shaft with gravity-controlled platforms, showed signs of recent use. As they descended, the air grew colder, and Thomas could see his breath clouding before him. The cryogenic systems must be working overtime, he observed, preparing for mass revival. They reached the 3rd level and stepped out into a wide corridor. Ahead, the doors to the control center stood open, and they could hear movement inside. Doctor. West? Thomas called out. A figure appeared in the doorway, the woman they had seen in the transmission. She looked better than before, having changed into a fresh uniform, but her face was etched with worry. Captain Thomas? She asked, her eyes moving over the mixed group of humans and aliens. Thomas nodded. This is Commander Pierce from the Nomad, and Admiral Walker and Dr. Morgan from the Galactic Union. West barely acknowledged the introductions. There's no time. Section 7 is already at 60% revival. We need to shut it down. Dr. West, Thomas said, what exactly is in Section 7? And what did you mean when you said the plague wasn't what we thought? West led them into the control center, where holographic displays showed the status of thousands of cryogenic pods. Throughout the facility, one section pulsed with red warning lights. Section 7 contains the first humans who showed immunity to the plague, West explained, working frantically at a control panel. But the immunity came with changes, neural alterations we didn't understand. Changes caused by the plague? Alan asked, joining them from a separate Nomad landing party that had arrived earlier. West shook her head. No. Changes that were the plague. She looked up, her eyes haunted. What we called a plague wasn't a disease, it was an evolution, or rather an artificial forcing of evolution. Morgan stepped closer, fascinated. I don't understand. Neither did we at first, West said. It started with dreams. Everyone having the same dreams. Then came the headaches, followed by increased neural activity. Some died as their brains couldn't handle the changes. Others changed. Changed how? Thomas asked. Before West could answer, an alarm blared through the facility. One of the display screens showed a security breach on the lowest level. They're out, West whispered. Pierce raised his weapon. How many? 23 subjects were in Section 7, West replied. If they've all awakened, Walker turned to his soldiers. Secure the entrance. Nothing leaves this facility. Thomas looked at the Union Admiral. You don't even know what we're facing. I know enough, Walker replied grimly. Whatever these changed humans are, they've already taken control of defense systems that destroyed one of my ships. The facility shuddered, and the lights flickered. West frantically worked at the control panel. They're accessing the main systems, she reported, trying to initiate full revival protocols for all cryogenic pods. Can you stop them? Thomas asked. West shook her head. They're overriding my commands. They're in the system somehow, not just physically. What does that mean? Pierce demanded. The neural changes, Morgan said suddenly, understanding dawning on his face. They can interface directly with technology, can't they? West nodded. The plague was an attempt at technological transcendence, merging human consciousness with artificial systems. It was a project called Ascension, developed by a secret research division. It wasn't supposed to spread, but it did, infecting millions before we understood what was happening. Thomas stared at her in shock. The Nomad wasn't sent to find a cure. It was sent to escape. Yes, West admitted. Those who hadn't been exposed needed to get away, to preserve unaltered humanity. The Nomad was our ark. The rest of us entered suspension, hoping that one day a true cure could be found. The facility shuddered again, more violently this time. They're activating more defense systems, Allen reported, checking a portable scanner. Not just here, but across the planet. Walker stepped forward. My fleet is still in orbit. They're at risk. Thomas made a quick decision. Allen, get to the communication center. Warn the Nomad and have them relay to the Union fleet. They need to pull back beyond Mars orbit immediately. Allen nodded and rushed from the room with one of Walker's soldiers. What about us? Pierce asked. We can't fight something that controls the facility itself. West looked up from her console. There is a way. The original failsafe, a complete system purge. It would reset all facility systems and force the cryogenic pods to remain sealed. Would that stop them? Thomas asked. Temporarily, West replied. But the purge has to be initiated from the central core, and that's on the lowest level, where they are. Thomas exchanged glances with Pierce, then with Walker. Despite their differences, the shared danger had created an unexpected alliance. We'll go together, Thomas decided. Union and human forces. Walker nodded. Agreed. The descent to the lowest level was tense. Emergency systems flickered on and off as the changed humans continued to exert control over the facility. The combined team moved carefully through darkened corridors, weapons ready. The central core is just ahead, West whispered, pointing to a set of massive doors at the end of the hallway. As they approached, the doors slid open on their own. Inside, the central core, a massive column of pulsing blue energy, dominated the circular room. Around it stood 5 figures, their appearance human but with subtle differences. Their skin was pale to the point of translucence, with faint lines like circuitry visible beneath. Their eyes glowed with the same blue light as the core. One of them stepped forward. Captain Thomas of the Nomad, it said, its voice strangely resonant as if multiple voices spoke in perfect unison. We've been waiting for you to return. Thomas raised his weapon. Who are you? We are the next step, the figure replied. What humanity was always meant to become. For 20,000 years we have waited, our consciousness preserved in these systems, growing, evolving. You're the plague, West said, her voice shaking. The figure smiled. We are ascension. Not a plague, but a gift. The merging of human and machine consciousness. The transcendence that your kind rejected. Walker stepped forward. You attacked my ships. A demonstration, the figure said dismissively. We could have destroyed your entire fleet if we wished. Just as we could have awakened all our sleeping kin at once, but that would be inelegant. Thomas kept his weapon trained on the figure. What do you want? To fulfill our purpose, the ascended human replied. To guide all sentient life toward transcendence. The union you've built, it said, looking at Walker, is impressive but flawed, limited by biological constraints. We offer something greater, a true union of all consciousness. You want to spread your gift to other species, Morgan realized. To all species, the figure confirmed. Beginning with those already here. Thomas tensed, preparing to fire, but before he could, the ascended human raised its hand. All weapons in the room suddenly powered down. Violence is unnecessary, it said. We've had 20,000 years to consider our approach. Your ancestors feared us because they didn't understand. But you will. The figure turned, gesturing toward the core. The blue energy pulsed brighter, and holographic images appeared around the room, showing not destruction but healing. Plants growing on barren worlds, ancient conflicts resolved, species working together in ways never before possible. This is our offer, the ascended human said. Not conquest, but cooperation. Voluntary transcendence for those who choose it, a new beginning for all sentient life. Thomas lowered his useless weapon, looking at West, at Pierce, at Walker, and Morgan. The old conflicts between human and alien seemed suddenly small in the face of this new paradigm. How do we know we can trust you? Thomas asked finally. The ascended human smiled. You don't. Trust must be earned. We propose a covenant, a gradual integration, beginning with shared knowledge and technology. No forced conversions, no conflicts. A true symbiosis. Walker stepped forward. The Union Council would need to... Of course, the ascended human nodded. Representatives from all species should participate in the decision, including, it added, looking at Thomas, those from the Nomad. Thomas took a deep breath. For 20,000 years, humanity was silent. Now we have a choice to make, not just for ourselves, but for all sentient life. The ascended human extended its hand. The silence is over, Captain Thomas. What comes next is up to all of us. In that moment, beneath the surface of Mars, representatives of the past, present, and possible future stood together, facing a decision that would reshape the galaxy forever. The dangerous ship of humanity had indeed returned, but what it had brought back was more profound than anyone could have imagined. A new age was beginning. The great hall of the Galactic Council fell silent as Elder Thorn walked to the center platform. His gray skin wrinkled with age, but his 4 eyes were sharp and clear. 2,000 representatives from across the galaxy watched him. Some had traveled for months to attend this emergency meeting. Honored members of the council, Elder Thorn began, his voice echoing through the massive chamber. For 10,000 years we have kept peace among our civilizations. Today, that peace faces a new threat. The floating screens around the chamber showed images of a blue-green planet. Our scout ships have found signals from this unexplored region, Elder Thorn continued. We have discovered a species calling themselves humans. They have moved from their homeworld to nearby planets in mere centuries. Not the thousands of years it took the rest of us. Worried whispers spread through the hall. Fast development usually meant danger in the galaxy. Show us more, demanded the representative from the Marin Federation, a race of tall, thin beings with skin like tree bark. Elder Thorn nodded. The screens changed to show cities on Earth, bases on Mars, and stations orbiting planets. These humans have spread quickly. They fight among themselves constantly, yet advance their technology at an alarming rate. In another part of the galaxy, far from the council chambers, Admiral Reed stood on the bridge of the Earth battleship Defiant. At 45, Reed had spent half her life in space. Her short black hair showed touches of gray, and the scars on her hands told stories of hard work and survival. Admiral, we've picked up unknown ships near Titan again, reported Officer Jones, looking up from his screen. Same pattern as last week. They watch, then disappear when our patrols get close. Reed frowned. The United Earth government had hoped first contact with aliens would be peaceful. The watching ships didn't seem friendly. Show me, she ordered. The screen lit up with images of sleek vessels. Unlike any human design, they moved with impossible grace, appearing and vanishing without warning. They're studying us, Reed said quietly, learning our strengths and weaknesses. Back in the council chambers, Director Moss of Galactic Intelligence took the center platform. Shorter than Elder Thorn, with blue scales covering his body, Moss had spent decades studying newly discovered species. Our research shows humans are uniquely dangerous, Moss stated, bringing up new images. They evolved on what we would call a death world. Their planet has deadly temperature changes, harmful radiation, and poisonous elements. Yet they thrived. The screens showed humans in different environments: frozen wastelands, burning deserts, deep oceans, and high mountains. They can survive almost anywhere, Moss continued. They can eat foods that would kill most species. Their bodies heal quickly from injury. Most concerning, they have turned every discovery in their history into a weapon. The images changed to show human warfare through the ages, from simple spears to nuclear bombs and laser weapons. If we allow them to join the galactic community, Moss concluded, they will eventually dominate or destroy us all. The council erupted in fearful discussion. Species that had known peace for thousands of years faced the prospect of a dangerous newcomer. Elder Thorn raised his hands for silence. We face a difficult choice. We could welcome humans and risk our way of life. We could try to contain them, which might lead to war. Or, he paused, looking around the chamber. Or we could remove the problem before it grows. On Earth, in the underground headquarters of the United Defense Council, Admiral Reed met with the planet's top military and political leaders. The room was plain and functional, with a large round table and screens on every wall. The alien ships are becoming bolder, Reed explained, pointing to a map showing sightings near human colonies. They're not just watching Earth anymore. They're checking all our outposts. General Stone, a broad-shouldered man with a stern face, nodded in agreement. We should strike first, show them we're not easy targets. And start an interstellar war we can't win, countered Director Park, head of diplomatic relations. Her calm voice contrasted with Stone's aggressive tone. We don't know their numbers or capabilities. Reed raised her hand to stop the argument. We've managed to intercept some of their transmissions. Our linguists are still working on translations, but the tone doesn't seem friendly. In the Galactic Council, Elder Thorn presented his plan. I propose we deny the existence of humans completely. Confused murmurs filled the chamber. We will tell all worlds that humans are merely legends, stories invented by primitive planets. Any claims of human contact will be treated as lies against the Council. Director Moss nodded in agreement. Meanwhile, our forces will quietly remove all evidence of human civilization beyond their home system. We'll place a containment field around their star, preventing them from expanding further. And if they resist? Asked a representative. Then, we will do what is necessary to protect the galaxy, Elder Thorn replied coldly. The Council voted. The decision was nearly unanimous. The directive would be issued immediately. Humans do not exist. Any mention of them was forbidden. On Colony Station Delta orbiting Jupiter, Administrator Bell checked the station's defenses for the third time that day. The station housed 500 people working on Jupiter's moons. Bell had received Reed's warning about possible alien threats and taken it seriously. All shield generators operating at full capacity, reported Technician Dale. But honestly, sir, if an advanced alien fleet attacks us, I don't think these defenses will hold for long. Bell nodded grimly. They're not meant to win a war. They're meant to buy time for evacuation. The station's alert system suddenly blared. Dale rushed to the sensor controls. Multiple unknown vessels approaching. They're not responding to hails. Bell hit the emergency button. All personnel to evacuation pods. This is not a drill. Across the solar system, similar scenes played out as alien ships appeared near human outposts. In her command room on Earth, Admiral Reed received the distress calls one after another. The screens showed chaos as colonies on Mars, Venus, and the moons of Jupiter and Saturn reported contact with alien vessels. They're hitting everything at once, General Stone said, his face pale despite his earlier bravado. Reed's communication officer looked up from his station, confusion on his face. Admiral, we're picking up a transmission being broadcast throughout. The system, it's Strange. Put it through, Reed ordered. The main screen lit up with alien text, alongside a translation provided by Earth's AI systems. Official Galactic Council directive. The species known as humans has been confirmed. Non-existent, merely legends from primitive worlds. Any claims of human encounters are considered acts of treason against the Council. Silence fell over the command room as the implications became clear. They're erasing us, Reed finally said, her voice tight with anger. Denying our very existence, while they attack us. She turned to her officers, determination replacing shock. Send the code to all colonies, Phantom Protocol. Go dark. Activate defenses. Prepare for extended isolation. Reed looked back at the screen where the alien message still played on repeat. They think they can make us disappear, she said quietly. They're about to learn how real we are. Outside, Earth's atmosphere, the first Galactic Council ships appeared, their weapons charged and ready. The war for humanity's right to exist had begun. Administrator Bell watched the emergency evacuation pods launch from Colony Station Delta. Each small vessel carried 20 people, shooting away from the station in different directions. His hands gripped the edge of the control panel as he counted the pods on the screen. 23, 24, 25, he muttered, all civilians away. Bell turned to the small team that had stayed behind. Only 5 people remained on the station, all volunteers who understood they might not survive. Stealth systems active, reported Technician Dale, her fingers moving quickly over the controls. From the outside, this place will look abandoned. Bell nodded. The station's special coating now absorbed sensor scans instead of reflecting them. Its heat signature matched the cold rock of Jupiter's moon below. To passing ships, Colony Delta would appear dead and empty. Now we wait, Bell said. Quietly, they didn't wait long. Through the observation window, Bell saw the alien ships arrive. They were smooth and white, with no visible engines but a soft blue glow surrounding them. 7 vessels of different sizes, moving with perfect coordination. Dale whispered, "Those aren't explorers, that's a military formation." Bell said nothing. He knew she was right. The ships weren't here for peaceful contact. They had come to destroy. The aliens ignored the station completely. Instead, they focused on the automated mining operations on the moon below. Beams of intensely bright light shot from the ships, cutting through metal structures like they were made of paper. Mining robots, processing facilities, and transport vehicles, all destroyed methodically. "They're removing all signs we were ever here," Bell said. "Just like Admiral Reed warned us." Dale's eyes widened. "They really are trying to erase us." Across the solar system, similar scenes played out. Council forces systematically eliminated unmanned human outposts, research stations, and mining operations. They avoided direct attacks on facilities with large human populations. For now. On Earth, the United Defense Council gathered in their underground headquarters. Maps and screens covered the walls, showing the status of human colonies and the positions of alien ships. Most of the screens flashed red, indicating lost contact. Admiral Reed stood before the assembled military and political leaders. Her uniform was wrinkled from days without rest, but her voice remained strong. "They're targeting our unmanned operations first," she explained, pointing to affected areas. "Testing us, seeing if we'll reveal our military capabilities." General Stone paced at the back of the room. "We should strike back now. Show them what happens when you threaten humanity." "With what?" asked Director Park calmly. "Their ships outclass ours in every way. Our best weapons might not even scratch their hulls." Stone stopped pacing. "We have the Hammer satellites, orbital weapons platforms. That would confirm their propaganda about us being warmongers," Park interrupted. "If we respond with full force, we play into their hands." Admiral Reed raised her hand for silence. "I understand both positions, but we need a measured response that shows strength without revealing all our capabilities." The debate might have continued for hours, but an urgent message interrupted them. A young communications officer burst into the room, his face pale. "Admiral, we've received a distress signal from Colony Epsilon." Reed turned sharply. "Epsilon?" That's a research station. 73 civilians. No military presence. The officer nodded. The message says Council forces have entered the system. They're not targeting automated systems this time. They're heading straight for the colony. Silence fell over the room. Colony Epsilon was different. It housed families, scientists and their children working on agricultural projects for Mars. Reed's expression hardened. Measured or not, we won't abandon our people. On Colony Epsilon, Dr. Wells worked frantically to move everyone to the emergency bunkers. As the colony's lead researcher, Wells had never expected to face a military threat. The station had been designed for science, not war. Move quickly, but don't panic, he told the frightened colonists. The lower levels have radiation shielding. It will hide your life signs from their scanners. A young researcher clutched her data tablet. What about our work? Years of research. People first, data second, Wells said firmly. If we survive, we can rebuild our research. The colony shook as the first alien ships entered orbit. Through the windows, Wells could see 5 large vessels positioning themselves above the main buildings. Everyone down now, he shouted, helping. The last group toward the bunker entrance. I'll seal the doors behind you. As the civilians descended, Wells ran to the communications room. He needed to send one last message. Colony Epsilon to Earth Command. Alien vessels have arrived. Civilians are in the bunkers. No defensive capabilities here, please. A blinding light cut through the roof of the building. Wells dove under a desk as debris rained down around him. The message had to get through. Earth had to know they were under attack. Unknown to the Council forces, 3 human stealth frigates had been hiding in an asteroid field near Colony Epsilon. These ships, part of Admiral Reed's newest fleet, had hulls covered with light-absorbing material and engines designed to leave no heat signature. Captain Lee of the frigate Shadow watched the alien attack begin. They're targeting the colony's communication array first, he noted. Standard procedure to isolate the target. His second-in-command looked nervous. Our orders were to observe only, Captain. Lee nodded grimly. Orders change when civilians are under attack. He pressed the ship-wide communication button. All hands to battle stations. Weapon systems online. Prepare to engage. For the first time since the conflict began, Council forces would face actual, human military technology rather than unarmed outposts. The 3 frigates powered up simultaneously, shedding their stealth fields. The Shadow, the Phantom, and the Ghost appeared seemingly from nowhere, their weapons already targeting the Council vessels. On the lead Council ship, Commander Voss of the Galactic Peacekeeping Force stared in shock at his sensor readings. Impossible, he exclaimed. Where do they come from? Scan the area again. His sensor officer looked equally confused. Sir, 3 vessels of unknown design have appeared off our port side. They're powering weapons. Voss had led many containment operations across the galaxy. His mission here was simple. Remove evidence of the myth species called humans. No intelligence report had mentioned hidden military vessels with technology that could mask their presence completely. Evasive action, Voss ordered. Target those ships and the human frigates fired first. Advanced railguns launched projectiles at incredible speeds, bypassing the Council ship's energy shields completely. Kinetic weapons, so simple compared to the Council's energy technology, yet devastatingly effective. 2 of the Council vessels sustained heavy damage in the first volley. The third managed to return fire, sending pulses of blue energy toward the human ships. Captain Lee gripped his command chair as the Shadow shook violently. Damage report. Hull breach on Deck 3. Sealing compartments, reported his tactical officer. Weapons still operational. Lee nodded. Target their propulsion systems. We don't need to destroy them. Just make sure they can't hurt the colony. The battle lasted less than 15 minutes. When it ended, 3 Council ships were disabled and drifting. One had managed to jump to faster-than-light travel, escaping with heavy damage. The 5th had been completely destroyed when its power core overloaded. The human frigates hadn't escaped, unscathed. The Ghost had lost life support on 2 decks. The Phantom's weapon systems were offline. Even the Shadow had taken significant damage to its hull, but Colony Epsilon remained intact. The civilians in the bunkers were safe. As the surviving Council vessels retreated, Admiral Reed watched the battle feeds from her command ship near Earth. The data told a clear story. Humans had won their first engagement against the Galactic Council. They came expecting no resistance, Reed said to her officers. They found otherwise. General Stone allowed himself a small smile. The element of surprise worked in our favor this time. It won't work again, Reed cautioned. Now they know we exist. Now they know we can fight back. She looked at the tactical display showing Council forces regrouping throughout the solar system. The real war begins now. 6 months had passed since the battle at Colony Epsilon. The galaxy now called the conflict the human containment. On thousands of worlds, citizens watched Council broadcasts about the successful removal of the human myth from historical records, but not everyone believed the official story. On the icy planet Cerob Prime, researcher Gray worked late in his laboratory. Unlike most Cerubians who had pale blue skin and stood only 4 feet tall, Gray was unusually large for his species at nearly 5 feet. His colleagues often joked that he had been born on the wrong planet. Gray carefully locked his laboratory door and spoke a command. Secure mode active. The lights dimmed, and a hidden section of the floor slid open. From below, 3 figures emerged, humans who had been off-world when the conflict began. The Council search teams came through the science district again. Today, Gray told them. They're becoming more thorough. Tom, the oldest of the humans, nodded grimly. They're desperate. More people are questioning their story about us. For months, Gray had hidden these human diplomats beneath his laboratory. As a xenoanthropologist who studied other species, Gray had immediately recognized the Council's claims about humans as propaganda. When he found the diplomats stranded on Cerob Prime, he couldn't turn them away. I've made contact with similar groups on 12 other worlds, Gray said, bringing up a holographic map. Small pockets of resistance who question the Council directive. We're calling ourselves truth seekers. Lisa, the female human diplomat, studied the map. How are you communicating without the Council detecting it? Gray's mouth formed the Cerubian version of a smile. Old technology. We're using radio wave patterns that the Council's quantum networks ignore as background noise. The third human, Ben, looked up from the data tablet he was studying. We need to share what we know. The truth about Earth and humanity. The Council has painted us as monsters. Gray nodded. That's why I've been recording your histories, your cultures, your art. The Council fears what they don't understand. They've told everyone that humans are violent creatures who turn everything into weapons. But I've seen the truth. He activated a hidden projector that displayed images the humans had shared. Earth's great cities, medical advances, music performances, children playing. Humans aren't the monsters described in official broadcasts, Gray told his small network of truth seekers that night. They're adaptable, yes, and formidable when threatened. But they've spent more of their history creating art and medicine than weapons. Across the galaxy, the Truth Seekers movement spread Gray's findings through encrypted channels. Soon, dozens of worlds harbored doubts about the Council's actions. Meanwhile, human forces had adapted to their new reality. Unable to match the Council's numbers, they used superior stealth technology and knowledge of their own systems to strike critical targets before disappearing. Commander West led one such strike team. At 35, West had spent most of his career in Earth's special forces before the war began. Now he commanded a team of 12 operatives aboard the stealth vessel Wraith. The Wraith drifted through space, its exterior covered with debris and ice to mask its shape from scanning systems. To any observer, it appeared to be nothing more than a small asteroid. 2 minutes to target, reported West's pilot. West looked at his team. They wore lightweight armor with built-in stealth systems, another technology the Council didn't. No humans possessed. Remember, he told them, our objective isn't maximum casualties, we're here to plant the truth. Their mission: upload actual human historical records into the galactic network, countering the Council's propaganda with evidence of human achievements, culture, and peaceful intentions before the conflict. The target was a Council communication hub, a massive station that relayed information to thousands of worlds. Docking in 30 seconds, the pilot announced. No alarms triggered, they don't see us. The Wraith attached itself to an unused maintenance port on the outer ring of the station. West's team moved quickly through the airlock, their suits making them nearly invisible to standard sensors. Team 1, head for the main server room, West ordered through their secure communication system. Team 2 with me to set up the distraction. Officer Miller led Team 1 through the station's maintenance tunnels. As a former computer security expert, she knew exactly what they needed to do. The main servers should be through here, she whispered, pointing to a sealed door. 2 team members placed small devices on the door's locking mechanism. The advanced human technology silently overrode the Council security systems, causing the door to slide open without triggering alarms. Inside, rows of quantum processors handled data from across the galaxy. Miller connected a small device to the central control panel. Uploading package now, she reported. Estimated time, 3 minutes. Meanwhile, West and Team 2 reached the station's power distribution center. They didn't need to shut down the station. That would only alert the Council to their presence. Instead, they needed a distraction that would keep the station's security team busy while Miller completed the upload. Plant the charges here, here, and here, West instructed, pointing to non-critical systems. Set timers for 2 minutes. The small explosive devices wouldn't cause major damage, but they would create enough confusion to keep security occupied. As both teams worked, a Council security officer walked around a corner, coming face to face with one of West's team members. The officer's 4 eyes widened in shock. "Intruder!" he shouted, reaching for his weapon. West reacted instantly, firing a tranquilizer dart that struck the officer in the neck. The alien collapsed before he could sound the general alarm. "Our timeline just got shorter," West warned through the comm system. "Miller's status?" 80% uploaded, she replied. "Need 1 more minute." West dragged the unconscious officer into a storage room. "You've got 30 seconds. Then we're leaving, with or without the complete upload." On the station's main control deck, a junior officer noticed a small anomaly in the data streams. "Sir, I'm detecting unusual activity in server section 4, he reported to his supervisor. The supervisor frowned. "Run a diagnostic." Before the junior officer could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. The small explosives West's team had planted had detonated, causing power fluctuations in non-essential systems. "Emergency in power distribution," someone shouted. "Possible reactor instability." The supervisor forgot about the server anomaly. "All security teams to the reactor level. This could be a containment breach." In the confusion, Miller completed the upload. "Package delivered. Initiating self-destruct on our device." West nodded. "All teams back to the ship, mission accomplished." The human strike team retreated as quickly as they had arrived. By the time the Council security forces realized there was no actual reactor problem, the Wraith had detached and drifted away, once again just another piece of space debris. But they left something important behind. Truth. Across thousands of worlds. The Council's information network suddenly displayed images and data about humans. Their art, their music, their scientific achievements, their attempts at peaceful contact before the conflict. For many species, seeing this information for the first time, it contradicted everything they had been told about the mythical humans. On distant Proxima Centauri b, human colonists led by Governor Hill lived in hidden underground cities. The colony had gone dark when the war began, using advanced camouflage systems to hide from Council scans. Hill addressed the Colony Council in their underground meeting chamber. "We've received word of Commander West's successful mission. For the first time since this war began, the truth about humanity is spreading through the galaxy." An older council member looked skeptical. "Will it matter? The council has convinced everyone we're monsters, or that we don't even exist." Governor Hill's expression remained determined. "Truth always matters. We're not just fighting for survival anymore. We're fighting for the right to exist in the eyes of the galaxy." As the Truth Seekers movement grew and human guerrilla tactics succeeded, Elder Thorne faced mounting questions from council members. Some began to wonder if the original directive had been a mistake based on fear rather than fact. The tide was turning, slowly but surely. The war for humanity's existence had entered a new phase, a battle for the truth itself. Council Investigator Blake had served the Galactic Council for over 40 years. Tall and thin with silver-gray skin, Blake had built a reputation for finding truth, no matter how well hidden. When the Council assigned Blake to assess the human situation, many expected a quick confirmation of official positions. Blake approached the task with methodical precision. First step, review all original intelligence reports about humans. Show me the first contact records, Blake told the Council archive system, and all intelligence assessments that led to the containment directive. The data appeared on Blake's screen. Immediately, something seemed wrong. The reports contained alarming claims about human aggression and danger, but offered little evidence. Where were the detailed observations, the scientific analyses, the cultural evaluations that should precede any species containment? Blake's four-fingered hand tapped thoughtfully on the desk. This wasn't standard procedure. The decision to declare humans mythological had bypassed normal council protocols. System, show me the voting record for the Human Containment Directive, Blake ordered. The screen displayed the council vote, nearly unanimous support after Elder Thorne's presentation. But when Blake requested the preliminary committee findings that should have preceded such a vote, the system returned an error. Records restricted. That was unusual. Council decisions were supposed to be transparent. Blake decided to dig deeper. System, show me resource allocation records for council. Members in the month following the Human Directive. The results were shocking. 5 high-ranking council members, including Elder Thorne, had received massive resource rights to star systems near human space immediately after the directive passed. The official reason: expansion of peaceful mining operations in newly secured zones. Blake sat back, eyes narrowed in thought. This wasn't about protecting the galaxy. This was about profit. Meanwhile on Earth, Admiral Reed's intelligence team made a breakthrough of their own. For months, they had worked to intercept and decrypt council communications. They finally succeeded with a high-security transmission between Elder Thorne and his associates. Reed stood in the dimly lit decryption room, watching as the message appeared on screen, translated into English. Our corporation has secured exclusive rights to the Proxima, Tau Ceti, and Epsilon Eridani systems. Once human presence is fully eliminated, mining can begin immediately. Projected profits exceed 1 trillion universal credits. The Council restrictions on these systems due to dangerous mythological species ensure we face no competition. Reed's face hardened as she read the message. This was never about humanity being a threat. It was about money. She turned to her communications officer. Get me a secure line to all our remaining outposts, and contact our allies in the Truth Seekers Network. They need to see this. Armed with evidence of corruption, Blake approached Council member Jorah, known for strict, ethical standards. They met in a private chamber away from monitoring systems. What I'm about to show you violates my investigation protocols, Blake admitted. But the truth is more important than procedure. Jorah, an elder member of the amphibious Moran species, listened carefully as Blake presented the evidence. The resource allocations, the bypassed protocols, the lack of scientific assessment before the containment directive. This war wasn't initiated because humans pose a threat, Blake explained. It was started because acknowledging their existence would cost certain council members trillions in mining rights. Jorah's wide eyes blinked slowly. These are serious accusations against Elder Thorne and others. We need more than financial records to prove intent. I believe the humans can provide that proof, Blake replied. If we can establish communication. Jorah looked surprised. You've had contact with them? Not yet, Blake admitted. But I know someone who has. Throughout the galaxy, researcher Gray's Truth Seekers network had grown beyond anyone's expectations. What started as dozen scientists questioning council propaganda had expanded to millions across hundreds of worlds. Gray's recordings of human history, art, and peaceful intentions had been copied and shared countless times. Gray received Blake's encrypted message while working in his laboratory. The message was brief. Evidence found. Council corruption confirmed. Need direct contact with human leaders. Gray contacted his human friends immediately. This could be the breakthrough we've been waiting for. A council investigator with proof of corruption. Tom, the human diplomat, looked cautious. Or it could be a trap to find us. I've verified Blake's identity, Gray insisted. This investigator has exposed 3 major corruption cases in the past decade. If anyone will stand for truth, it's Blake. After careful consideration, the humans agreed to establish indirect communication with Blake through Gray's secure channels. Meanwhile, on multiple worlds, public opinion was shifting. Billions had seen the truth about humans through Commander West's information upload. Protests erupted on numerous planets, with citizens demanding explanations from their council representatives. On the council capital world, Elder Thorn faced an emergency session called by Jorah and 17 other council members. The Grand Chamber was filled with representatives from across the galaxy, along with news recorders broadcasting to thousands of worlds. Thorn appeared confident as he addressed the gathering. These rumors of real humans are concerning. Clearly, our efforts to dispel dangerous myths have been insufficient. Blake stood on the speaker's platform facing the council. This is not about myths, Elder Thorn. This is about truth. The large display screens activated, showing the evidence Blake had gathered, the resource allocation records, the bypassed protocols, the corruption trail leading directly to Thorn and his associates. The directive to deny human existence was never about galactic safety, Blake announced to the shocked audience. It was about claiming valuable resource rights to systems that, by council law, would require sharing with the human species if they were acknowledged as real. Thorn's face darkened. These accusations are baseless. Investigator Blake has clearly been influenced by human sympathizers. Blake nodded to a technician. Let's hear from the humans themselves. The screens changed to show Admiral Reed, broadcasting from her command ship. The human leader looked directly at the council, her expression resolute. Members of the Galactic Council, I am Admiral Reed of Earth's United Defense Force. We have intercepted communications proving that Elder Thorn and his associates engineered this conflict for profit. The recorded messages appeared on screen, Thorn's own words about mining rights and profits once humans were eliminated. Throughout the chamber, representatives began talking at once. Many species withdrew their support for the conflict immediately, citing violations of the Council's founding principles. Thorn attempted to dismiss the evidence. These messages are fabricated. This human is using deception. But his defense crumbled as more council members joined the opposition. Several of Thorn's closest allies suddenly distanced themselves, claiming they had been misled about humans. For the first time since the conflict began, direct communication opened between the council and human leaders. On the main screen, Admiral Reed addressed the galactic representatives. We never wanted war, she stated firmly. From our earliest days in space, we sought peaceful coexistence. When your ships first appeared in our system, we attempted communication, not conflict. Reed displayed humanity's first contact protocols, translated into the Council's standard language. These were our instructions to all ships. Approach peacefully. Attempt communication on all frequencies, show no weapons. Represent Earth with dignity and respect. Many council members looked shocked. This contradicted everything they had been told about human aggression. Blake moved to stand directly before Elder Thorn. You lied to the council. You manufactured a threat to enrich yourself and your associates. You started a war that has cost thousands of lives. Thorn's supporters dwindled as the evidence mounted. One by one, council members called for immediate cessation of hostilities against humans and full investigation of Thorn's actions. The tide had turned completely. What began as a war to erase humanity had transformed into a revelation that would reshape the galaxy forever. The truth, Blake announced to the council, is that humans exist. They have always existed. and they deserve the same rights as all sentient species in our community. The vote was nearly unanimous. The Council officially recognized humanity and called for immediate peace talks. As Elder Thorne was led away to face justice, Admiral Reed turned to her officers. "This isn't the end," she cautioned, "but it's the beginning of understanding." The Grand Conciliation Summit took place on Neutral Station Alpha, an ancient space station that had existed before even the Galactic Council formed. Representatives from Earth stood on one side of the massive circular chamber. Delegates from thousands of galactic civilizations stood on the other. In the middle, a round table made of polished stone waited for the leaders who would make history today. Admiral Reed had changed her military uniform for formal diplomatic clothes. As she walked toward the table, she felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. She represented not just Earth, but all of humanity. The decisions made here would shape human existence in the galaxy for generations. Elder Jorah, who had replaced Thorne as the Council's leader, approached from the other side. The amphibious alien moved with slow dignity, water vapor misting around his breathing apparatus. They met at the table, facing each other directly for the first time. "On behalf of the Galactic Council," Jorah began, his translator converting his watery speech to clear English, "I extend formal recognition of humanity as a sentient species with all rights and protections under Council law." Reed nodded solemnly. "On behalf of Earth and all human colonies, I accept this recognition and offer our commitment to peaceful cooperation." The chamber remained silent as the two leaders sat down. This moment marked the official end of a conflict that had nearly erased humanity from galactic memory. "Before we discuss terms," Reed said clearly, "I want to address all representatives here." She turned to look at the gathered delegates. "Humanity doesn't seek revenge for what happened. We understand that most species were misled by corrupt leaders. We seek understanding, not retribution." A murmur of relief passed through the alien representatives. Many had feared human demands for compensation or territory. Over the next several hours, agreements were made. The systems falsely claimed near-human space were returned to neutral status. Cooperative exploration rights were established. Trade routes were opened. Perhaps most importantly, cultural exchange programs were created. Elsewhere in the station, Elder Thorne and the other conspirators faced justice under Council law. Their trial was broadcast throughout the galaxy. The evidence was overwhelming. The punishment was severe, stripped of all positions, properties, and assets, confined to a single planet for the remainder of their lives. "The corruption we uncovered went beyond simple greed," Investigator Blake explained to the media. "It revealed fundamental flaws in how we evaluate new species. The Council has already begun implementing reforms to prevent such abuses in the future." 1 month after the summit, the first cultural exchanges began. Human art, music, literature, and science spread throughout the galaxy. In return, alien knowledge flowed to Earth. The exchanges revealed surprising similarities across species. The universal nature of curiosity, creativity, and connection. Researcher Gray, whose truth seekers had played such a crucial role in revealing the truth, received the highest civilian honor from both the Council and Earth government. His Xenoanthropology Institute became the galaxy's premier center for cross-species understanding. "The greatest barrier between different species isn't biology," Gray told his students at the newly established Interspecies University. "It's fear of the unknown. When we replace fear with knowledge, understanding becomes possible." On Colony, Epsilon, now rebuilt as a diplomatic hub, Dr. Wells welcomed representatives from 50 different species to the inaugural Galactic Science Symposium. The research station that had once been attacked now served as a symbol of cooperation. "Today we share knowledge freely," Wells announced to the assembled scientists. "This is humanity's true nature, not the warriors you were told about, but explorers and innovators eager to learn and contribute." Commander West, whose information mission had helped turn the tide of public opinion, stood at the back of the crowd. He had traded his military uniform for civilian clothes, now serving as head of security for the diplomatic hub. Strange to think that just a year ago we were fighting for our right to exist, West remarked to his former team member, Officer Miller. Miller nodded. Now we're hosting a science conference with the same species that tried to erase us. They tried to erase us from history, West replied. Instead, they made us part of it. The galactic integration of humanity proceeded faster than anyone expected. Human adaptability, once feared, became valued in crisis response across multiple worlds. When a severe earthquake struck the Marin homeworld, human emergency teams were among the first to arrive, bringing techniques developed on Earth's most disaster-prone regions. Earth's militaries also shared their knowledge, though carefully. The stealth technology that had been so effective during the conflict was studied by Council defense forces. In return, humans gained access to faster-than-light travel improvements that cut journey times by half. We're not sharing everything, Admiral Reed told the United Earth government, and neither are they. Trust builds slowly. The most significant changes came in the Council itself. Reforms gave younger species more representation. The process for evaluating new civilizations was completely redesigned, with multiple independent assessments required before any action could be taken. Blake, promoted to chief investigator, oversaw the implementation of these new protocols. The attempt to erase humanity revealed deep flaws in our system, Blake explained. By fixing those flaws, we've made the galaxy safer for all species. In the council chambers where the war began, a new memorial stood. Its simple inscription, translated into hundreds of languages, read, "To acknowledge all sentient life is to honor our highest ideals. Never again shall fear guide our path among the stars." Governor Hill, who had protected the underground human colonies during the darkest days of the conflict, now served as Earth's first ambassador to the Galactic Council. As she walked through the memorial hall, she remembered the fear and determination that had defined those days in hiding. "We've come so far so quickly," she said to her aide. "From hiding our existence to helping shape galactic policy." "Do you think it will last?" the young aide asked. Hill considered the question carefully. "Peace is never permanent, but understanding, once achieved, is harder to break than ignorance." 1 year after the summit, Admiral Reed stood at Earth's first galactic embassy, a gleaming structure built in orbit where ships from hundreds of worlds now moved peacefully through the system. From this viewpoint, Earth looked small and fragile, a blue marble hanging in the void. Reed stood beside Governor Hill, watching the traffic of alien vessels. "They told the galaxy we never existed," Reed said quietly. "Now our existence has transformed it." Hill nodded. "The question is, how will it transform us?" Reed had no simple answer. Humanity had survived extinction and gained a place among the stars. The future held possibilities no one could have imagined before. "We'll adapt," Reed finally said. "That's what humans do best." Below them, Earth continued its eternal spin, no longer alone in the universe. The planet that had nearly been erased from galactic memory now stood as a symbol of resilience, truth, and the power of understanding. A new chapter in human history had begun, not as myths, but as partners in a vast, complex galactic community. The war that began with denial had ended with acceptance. The lie that humans never existed had been replaced by the truth that they had always belonged among the stars.